This is my annotations of my technology timeline. I chose to look at the last 3 years of my teaching career, which is really my entire teaching career, and see how my technology has developed throughout that time. I will be comparing it to the SAMR model, which I have learned about through district training on my integration of technology. Initially, in year one, semester one, when I walked into my classroom, there was this big, beautiful smartboard. I spent a lot of that first semester just learning what it could do. Initially, I utilized it at the substitution level, simply using it mostly as a whiteboard and also a way to display documents a little bit larger than me simply holding them up. Eventually, I did move into that augmentation level where I was writing on top of documents that I had displayed and using it for ClassDojo to monitor behavior by being able to interactively click on it and give points for different behaviors that I was seeing. Additionally, in my classroom, I had 3 desktop computers for students and then also 1 desktop for me that I could utilize. During that first semester, I really used those desktops as a center station for my students and used that app RazKids. Again, I would consider this more at the augmentation level because they were simply reading books online. However, they could take instant quizzes on them, and that feedback was given directly to me rather than me having to go in and grade them. And I could also put students at different levels. At this time, we also did have a computer lab in our school that we could sign up to utilize. However, since it was being shared by the entire building, there really wasn't a lot of availability. The few times I was able to get into there, I used it to publish my students' written work, which again was at the substitution level. I was simply having them type their work rather than handwrite it. Finally, during that first semester, we had an H drive, which is where I shared all of my documents and students shared their documents as well. Moving into my second semester, there was a huge change as we got one-to-one technology. For grades 3 through 5, we received a laptop cart with 32 different laptops. I did complete an initial teacher training, but I still had a very far way to go. In this training, I set up a class Moodle site, which was a learning management solution. I would say here I'm starting to approach that modification level because through this learning site, I was able to do things that I could not have done before without the technology. I could assign homework, I could assign activities, students could use it to link to different choice activities during our center time. I also could use it for collaborative work for students to work on. Again, I was still using substitution, In my centers, my literacy stations, I began using ReadWorks Digital rather than printed ReadWorks articles. I, however, did eventually bring that up to the augmentation level as I was able to differentiate. So all students were logging into ReadWorks, but they were able to see a document that was really at their level. I also used MobyMax in order for students to practice their math skills. This, I would say, was at that augmentation level as well as it was an app where they could practice, even leaning into modification as I began to use it to individually differentiate and reteach students on the skills that they still needed help with. Extra math is something that I use for fact fluency. This would be substitution, maybe a little bit of augmentation because it was individualized for each student and it had them practicing those facts that they weren't getting initially. Later on in the year, I did discover GoNoodle as a way to implement brain breaks. My students love these. I would display them up on the smartboard and students would dance along, getting out their energy every once in a while. I did discover Kahoot in that first year as a way to formatively assess my students. They're kind of a game-based play where students used their laptops as their game station with those questions displayed on the smartboard. This was very engaging for my students and also was a way for me to gather data on them without feeling that stress of that paper pencil test. Toward the end of the year, I learned about Nearpod through a mentoring class for new teachers, and this dramatically changed my instruction. My students' engagement rose incredibly, and I'm not sure if any of you have used Nearpod before, but it is really unique. You can have polls, you can have students drawing materials, you can have videos for students to watch, all kinds of interactive activities, matching, quizzes, everything you can think of, fill in the blank even. And it's designed so that all students are answering every question. It goes to your student I apologize, it goes to your teacher laptop, and then you can see everyone's work and send them out to students. So if one person's work is incredible, you can send it out to everyone's screen, and when you can discuss it, you can also send out incorrect work and hide the name and then use it as a way to evaluate and discuss it. There's also a Collaborate tool where students can collaborate and work together on tasks. This has been really great for brainstorming with my students. And finally, the coolest part is they have virtual field trips. So we were able to travel around to the 7 wonders of the world and discuss them in our social studies units. We also used it for different research projects that we were utilizing. This was really taking us up to that redefinition model where students were doing things that would have never been possible, and that technology was totally changing my instruction. Going into year 2, I decided I wanted to go back to school and start my master's. I had really been dabbling with all of the technology that we had, but I still wanted more guidance so that I knew I was using it to its fullest, as I knew that at that time I was not. Upon starting my master's, my technology use really did expand. Just from collaborating with other individuals in the program, I was able to learn about new apps, new programs, and be much more intentional. I found that at times when I was just using technology to use technology, that I could realize that and really fix that so that I wasn't simply doing ReadWorks digital articles on the laptop rather than printed paper to say I was using technology. I was doing it more purposefully. During my literacy centers, I began using technology for all of my non-teacher managed centers. It became a way for students to have choice. Additionally, that writing really developed and students began publishing their pieces using multiple methods. Rather than simply typing their piece, they might be changing it into a PowerPoint, adding in multimodal varieties, adding in those pictures, adding in music, different activities in that way. I also learned about quizzes in addition to Kahoot for affirmative assessment. I attended a training on Define STEM, which promoted problem-based learning. And finally, I used Mystery Science a lot for science at this time, which was a way to promote inquiry learning. So here I was still really at all phases of the SAMR model, depending on where I was at in my day. It looked differently throughout that day. And I had just begun exploring the new Microsoft platform that my district has gotten. And we were starting to explore OneDrive now rather than our H drive, and I had been given a teacher laptop. After starting my master's, it really inspired me to want to go to more trainings and learn more and do more. So I started to sign up for everything that I could and learn about different programs. One really unique program I learned about was 10Marks. It allowed me to create a flipped classroom for my advanced students where while I was teaching the general math lesson, they could be learning lessons on their own, and then I could pull them for small group instruction later to provide them that targeted instruction, which was well above the 3rd grade level. Unfortunately, this tool did not last for long, which is disappointing, but applies with all technology. Through reflective thinking and really reflecting on how I was using technology, I was able to change my instruction dramatically at the end of year 2 and helping my students to participate in activities that would not have been possible without the technology. Over the summer, I had the opportunity to teach STEM camp, which I would say has been my biggest growth in technology and probably the best time that I've really reached the top of that SAMR model to that redefinition level. Through the camp, I was able to learn about all of this technology our district has that I didn't even know existed, and we completed a design challenge. Each grade level had their own villain that they had to defeat. In order to do that, they used coding and different devices. Students were able to design how they were going to defeat Loki, who was my villain at my grade level. We used We Do Twos. It was really unique, and I got to see just how much learning was achieved, how much creativity I saw expanding, and really just those critical thinking skills from the students having this opportunity, even though it was one short week. I also did learn about zSpace during this time, which is a virtual learning machine. One of the coolest parts about this machine was that it had an app on it where students could hold a human heart in their hand. They could feel it beating. They could move up a human exercising to make it beat faster or beat slower. They could even pull those muscles off. And with the 3D glasses they had on, they could see inside the heart, see where those valves were. It was really awesome, a really unique opportunity. And moving forward into this year, I now have a zSpace in my classroom, which has been amazing. Another unique thing about this year is I have the enrichment level RTI group, and I currently have them creating their own multimodal text and publishing it to a class shared file where they are receiving feedback from each other. Moving forward into my current instruction right now, something I'm dabbling with right now is student portfolios and really building that homeschool connection through technology. Unfortunately, my time is up, but thank you